Welcome to the SwimSwam podcast. I'm your host, Coleman Hodges. Joining me today, he is entering his 29th season with the Arlington Aquatic Club, 16th season as the head coach, most notably in the recent past, known for being the coach of Olympic medalist Torri Huske. Today, we are sitting down with Evan Stiles. Evan, how's it going, man?
It's going great. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to speak with you. As I've told you, I've spoken with Torri before, and it sounds like from what she told me about practices, it sounds like you guys do some pretty cool stuff. So I'm excited to pick your brain, coach to coach today. But I do want to start with Torri in the last few months she's had. Obviously, she medaled at the Olympics. She finaled in the 100 fly. It was really exciting to watch her from heading into trials with the amount of pressure she had to make that team. She did it, and then she went on to the Olympics and performed really well. Let's start with the meet where she raced Claire. I think it was in Cary, North Carolina, at Claire's home pool.
Yep.
Claire Curzan. And Torri went best times in the 50 free, 100 free, 100 fly. I mean, her and Claire both just lit it up. And that was so exciting from a fan's perspective. At that meet, what were you expecting to see from Torri?
That's a good question. The reason why we went to that meet was because it was a long course meet, and we were just trying to get as much repetition racing long course because it's so different than short course. And we knew Claire was going to be there. So Claire and Torri have had some great races over the past year and a half or however long it's been. And I knew that if anything, she was going to have great competition. So I don't think I went into that meet with any expectation of how fast she was going to go, other than practice doing the things that we've been working on, like underwater kick counts and judging your walls and, things like that. And ironically, her finish in the 100 fly was horrific in that race. But that was a great learning tool. Like, we were able to watch the video and be like, oh my God, what, and she knew it right away. But, it was just, that's why we did that meet, because make the mistakes now and then we can fix them. So I definitely think she exceeded my expectations in terms of how fast she actually went. But she definitely reached my expectations in terms of coming out of that with things we can bring back to the pool and practice and work on. So I thought it was a great meet for her.
That's a great point. I love how you phrased that. She exceeded my expectation times, but she met them in terms of moving forward, which I guess is a great thing to see in an athlete. That you brought up an interesting point. You guys, it sounds like you guys didn't have a lot of opportunities to get long course racing reps in.
Not really. We didn't even have a ton of long course practice opportunities until May. So that's why we were trying to just get as much as we could, because warming up, warming down, in between races, that just swimming long course, I'll take anything I can get when it was limited up here in Northern Virginia. So that's exactly, it was taking advantage of the fact that there was a long course opportunity.
Yeah. Are you guys able to train long course very much, if at all, where you are?
That's kind of a trick question because, in recent times, it was a pandemic, right? So everything was changed, and in the pools that are long course didn't want to be long course because it limited the amount of people that you could put in the pool. So that was the main thing. So There's a pool down here, the St. James, that would be long course every Sunday. So we would get one practice a week long course down there, all the way through like September, October, all the way through until May. And once we hit May, things started to change. The St. James opened up a couple more days a week. We were going to an outdoor long course pool about 30 minutes away. We were going about 45 minutes away to another long course indoor pool up in Maryland, just to try to have as much long course as we could. So we ended up having 6 long course days, you know, from May until we left for trials. So normally, yes, it is hard. And that's why I was showing you in the beginning, like, we have a brand new long course pool here. So I'm going to be able to practice long course all the time. We're going to do it probably every morning, and then we'll have short course practices every afternoon. But that's not what we did in the past year. It was, we'll take whatever we can get.
Right.
But I also think Torri's a great example of, you don't have to always swim long course. I think she bought into the philosophy of swimming is swimming. And, you know, if I was giving her a practice that was challenging, it was going to translate into long course. So we took advantage of that too. Like, I just kicked her butt in short course when we could, and, you know, and then she would get in long course and swim fine. So, but a lot of swimmers don't have that mentality. It's either like, I can't swim long course, but you can. It's swimming. So.
I think obviously a lot of swimmers realize, you know, there's differences, but I do love that philosophy of just, swimming, you know, you're going to race fast. I think we've seen, especially over the last 18 months with the pandemic, we've seen a lot of examples of kids not getting long course reps in, whether that's in training or racing. And then they show up to meets and kick butt. And it's like, well, I did it.
I mean, I will say one of the most interesting things for me from the pandemic was realizing that kids can still swim fast, you know, because that was always the worry. Like, are we getting enough practice time? Are we getting enough long course or short course or whatever it was? But we would show up to meets and kids were flying, and it didn't matter if they were maybe only swimming 3 times a week or 4 times a week or whatever it was. So the kids adapted really well, I thought. And it actually was something that I've been talking to with just the coaches that I hang around with, that maybe we realized that it doesn't have to be as old school as we thought, where it's like 3-hour practices and, you know, blah, 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 because we were only getting 2-hour practices at the most ever. Mm-hmm. And our kids swam amazing. So, you know, maybe we have to kind of rethink what we actually are trying to do, and maybe there's a better way to do it. Maybe not, I don't know. but at least think about it, you know?
Yeah, certainly. I think the pandemic certainly provided a lot of food for thought, right? In terms of swimming training philosophies and how we approach training in the sport. So I have to ask though, you, up until 6 weeks out of trials, you were getting 1 long course practice in a week. How did you, as the coach, manifest that within Torri's training, you know, 6 months or 8 months out, especially knowing she's going to trials and she's a player, right? She's gonna be in the hunt to make the team.
Right. So it kind of goes back to what I was saying before, where if I knew Sunday was going to be a long course practice, and traditionally our training schedule is that we would take Sundays off. So I would go with her on Sunday, and she might ask a couple friends or something, but usually it was like me and Torri. But that meant we had to like give her a day off somewhere else, because I didn't want her swimming 7 days a week. So we just had to rearrange her schedule, and we ended up taking Saturdays off. Which ended up being great, because then she could come in a little bit rested on Sundays. And I made sure that every Sunday long course practice was totally race specific. We were doing sprint fly, working on IM transitions. She also swam the 200 freestyle. So we had to do 200 freestyle pace. But I just geared everything in the normal week for how I would normally do a practice. But then Sunday was very specific to long course racing. So, I think that was good for her to just feel, okay, this is what my pace is. This is what my speed is. This is what my fly kicks off the walls feel like, things like that. So I thought it was really good.
It sounds really good. I am curious, if you have Saturday off, you come in Sunday, and normally, your first practice after a day off would be more aerobic, getting the feel, getting back into it. Obviously, as you said, it's the only long course practice of the week, and you wanted to make sure it's race specific. But did that come into the equation at all, of like, maybe her body won't be as in tune just because she'd had a day off before?
No. Like I said, my normal practice routine is we have Sundays off, and I don't do like aerobic Mondays. I'm just like, all right, back in business, here we go. So I don't think that she was expecting it to be different. So, I don't think it mattered.
Yeah. Wow. Fair enough. So then, heading into trials, especially coming off the TAC Titans meet, did you guys have any other races before trials after that meet? I think it was in May.
Unofficially, yes. We one of the things, there has to be a little backstory here. Because Torri has made like winter nationals over the past couple of years, we also have a big team meet in December too. Or for example, like NCSA junior nationals in August, we would always fly from long course nationals to junior nationals. So twice a year, she would have these times where I would taper her for the first meet, and we would just hold on to that taper, and she would race 2 weekends in a row, or 2 weeks in a row, actually. And she did really well at that. So what I decided to do was the Sunday before the week before trials started, because that was her first race on that Sunday. The Sunday before that, we brought in a swimmer and we did a time trial, but it just like to race. So it was like 100 fly, I think 200 free and 50 free or something like that. But it was just really just getting her in the mindset of racing and having someone to challenge her. In a practice suit, she was 58, 1 or something like that on her fly. And on a Sunday morning, I thought that was pretty good, So that's how I kind of worked that into the getting that little extra racing, because I know she needs the racing and just the confidence, I guess. Like, her dad wanted her to put a tech suit on for that time trial. And she was like, I will feel more confident swimming fast in a practice suit. Then what if I only swim a little bit faster in a tech suit? Then I might not feel as confident. So we had this little battle on the pool deck, and I was like, I want you to wear a practice suit and swim fast, because in my opinion, it doesn't matter what suit you wear, just go fast, right? So that's the way it went, and it was great. I think it worked out really well. She had about 30 minutes in between every race, so we kind of made it like a meet. That was how we kind of did our final prep for racing, getting ready to go into trials.
I love it. That's and obviously, as you said, you've seen this work in the past with specifically with Torri, but it made me think of talking to James Magnuson, the Australian sprinter from 2012 and 2016. He leading into the 2012 Olympics, he was like, we didn't race for 4 months from like our trials until the games. And that's like the direct opposite of that, right? Like racing right before the meet. I think that's really interesting. It's just food for thought, right? Just I wonder how other swimmers would react to something like that. And so that was just trying to get the timeline right. That was on Sunday. And then was her first swim that next Sunday in Omaha?
Yeah.
Okay. So then you guys get to the big show in Omaha. How are you feeling as a coach?
So we got there really early. I got there like Wednesday night. We were all worried about like getting tested and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
And I knew Torri was flying in on Thursday morning, so I just wanted to get there. And then I got tested Wednesday night and all things went good.
Yep.
So then I met her at the pool on Thursday morning and helped walk her through the testing process, and it was fine. So
Nice.
we went down. It was actually a great first day. Like we got there and we, I've been there before, so it's pretty similar and I was familiar with it. It was a little different, obviously, because of COVID. Things were not as foo-foo, like no, dog petting area or things like that they've had in the past. But, we're standing there and Mike Unger from USA Swimming comes up and says, "Do you want me to give you a tour?" And I was like, "I would love you to give Torri a tour." And so he walked us through, like, this is where the ready room is. This is where you go up the steps and into the next area. And this is where you walk out. And she got really familiar. And I thought that was really nice of him. And we got to see where everything was and know how the lay of the land was. And the interesting thing was, Torri gets out onto the main pool deck and she's like, "Oh, it's not that bad." Like on TV, she's like, "Oh my God, this is going to be big and, scary." But she got out there, she's like, "Oh, this isn't that bad." So that was a good sign, like, okay, not overwhelming, because I've seen kids, when they're like, "Oh my God," and I get it. It's exciting and it's cool. And how many times you get to swim in like an arena like that? So it's a really cool experience, but she handled it great. So I guess to answer your question, I'm feeling good at that point. I know that I'm pretty confident in how I handle her. So I knew that she was going to be ready. And it was just making sure that, we had the schedule down. Okay, I'm going to meet you at the pool at this time and we'll do this and, go home and eat some food, take a nap, whatever. And we just did that for the next couple of days. And then Sunday rolls around and each race I got a little more nervous, like, okay, she got through prelims. All right, good. All right. She got through semis. All right. Oh my God. Finals,
Well,
so,
semis, she broke the American record, right?
Yeah. And I kind of had a feeling, I have to tell you, that she swam a pretty solid prelim swim. Like she went out really fast, like 25.9 or something like that.
Okay.
And then just kind of cruised it coming home. Like didn't look like she was really trying, didn't look like she was dying. And I know that's how she swims the race. But then at night, so that's the key, is prelims was in the morning. She got to swim that and get that out of her system. And then I knew she was going to go home and take a nap and get food and totally be ready. And she was going to crush it at night. So when she swam, I don't even remember what she went, 56.3 or something like that in prelims. I was like, oh my God, it's going to be fast tonight. So going 55.7 in semis, I just think that gave her all the confidence in the world. So because I don't think she knew she was going to do it. I know she wanted to do it, but I think she was still a little uncertain if it was going to actually happen. But I had a feeling it was going to happen. But still, it's great to see it. But you're like, phew, all right. That worked out pretty well. So then finals come around and it's at night again. So at that point, it's just like, all right, see how fast you can go. And she went a little bit faster. So, it was great to have that, kind of, I guess, technically second night, first event, be your best event and get it done, make the team. And, that whole experience was an experience, maybe I'm jumping ahead of myself, but the experience that she had when she made the team was no experience that you can ever try to prepare for the first time, so having to swim the race, do the post-race interviews, go get drug tested, warm down somewhere in there, and then do an interview with Michael Andrew. She was with Michael Andrew that night, and so she's at the pool till 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night, whatever it was. And then the height of that whole experience of coming up on that podium, and that was amazing. So I felt like, yeah, how do you prepare for that? You don't. Now you just learn from it and know that if it ever happens again, you're kind of more prepared. But for the first timers, that's what I'm saying. That's so hard, because I think she was probably pretty tired the next morning, and she had to swim 200 free and 200 IM prelims. So, I know there were a lot of coaches talking about that they were surprised that she was swimming every event, but that was our plan all along. We're going to swim everything, and maybe we'll make something. She swam meets before where she swam 20 times. If we go to NCSA Junior Nationals in March, she's swimming a lot of events plus relays. So she's used to that. So I wasn't worried about that. This was actually not really that hard for an age group 18-year-old,
Yeah.
But I couldn't prepare her for what the hangover of what the next day after going through that emotional roller coaster the night before. And I think that did kind of come back to bite her in the end. Like, in hindsight, maybe I wouldn't have swum one of those events.
Mm-hmm.
But I also felt like she had the potential to make the team in the 200 free. If the 200 free was her first event, she would have gone really fast. If the 200 IM was first, she would have gone really fast. Like that excitement of the first event, I think helped her, and it just happened to be her best event. But in hindsight, also, I think one of the best things to happen for her in a weird way is not making finals in the 100 freestyle, because it gave her a day off, and that way she could come up 50 free. Unfortunately, she got third. It's like the worst place to get. But she swam great. She was in the mix. It was anybody's race. Simone came on at the end and got in there, and that was great for her. But I also know that her 100 freestyle time from that TAC meet was faster than the winning time at trials. And that's a little frustrating too. But it's all good. It's her first time. She made the team, and hopefully we'll change that for the next time and see how it goes.
Yeah. There's a lot to unpack there.
I know. I felt like I talked for a while,
which is great. I love hearing you talk. You gave a lot of great insight. First of all, I think it's worth noting she made Olympic trials finals, 100 fly, 200 IM, 50 free. She made semis in the 200 free, 100 free. Did she swim a sixth event?
We scratched 200 fly.
Okay, scratched 2 fly. So let's start with this huge schedule. I was certainly surprised when we talked to her after the 100 fly, and she's like, "Oh yeah, no, I'm swimming all the other events." It's like, okay, that's a lot, especially with the 2 free, 2 IM double. I just talked to Justina Kozan the other day, who also swam the 2 free, 2 IM double, and she was like, "Oh, I actually talked to Torri in between it. It was nice to have a little repose and know that someone else was doing it too."
Yeah.
And so my question is, how do you prepare her for something like that? Obviously, you mentioned she's done this at big championship meets before. Is there anything training specific? Because I remember talking to Torri about her training. I remember thinking it doesn't seem exceedingly aerobic, and maybe it doesn't need to be, right? Maybe that's just kind of the old school mentality, but that's a lot of races over the course of a lot of days.
Yeah, I think the way I would start with that is learning how to recover. So making sure you're putting in the time to come down after a race and get ready for another race. That's something that I try to harp on them a lot. But on the flip side, we also try to create meet schedules where we have meets where they'll swim 11 events over 1.5 days. And so they'll swim a lot of events and plus relays. And, so we do that on purpose. And then not to mention the way the high school meets work, you probably saw she broke the high school record in the 200 IM and the 100 fly, and that was 22 minutes apart. So, we kind of do it on purpose, I guess, to make them like, if you got to swim 50 free and 100 fly at a high school meet, you're going to get 10 minutes rest. You got to swim fast. So let's do some meets where you have to swim the 200 IM and then the 200 fly and then the 100 free, and you get 40 minutes rest in between all of that combined. So and not to mention we do like race day Wednesdays and test sets on Saturdays where they're not getting a lot of rest, but I expect them to step up and go fast. So I guess it's kind of like the way I train them, but I don't know. I guess I don't really think of it that far ahead, but I do it on purpose to a point. I guess like in December of 2018, I wasn't thinking I got to get Torri ready for trials because she didn't have any events at that point. But but it's how I do for all my kids. Same idea.
I see. Yeah, I do like that philosophy a lot. I love that you started with, it's about recovering. You didn't start with, well, here's what we do in training, or here's why we do it at meets. It's like, no, if you're going to swim a lot of races, you got to learn how to recover, not necessarily how to swim a lot of races or how to train for a lot of races. That's something I've never heard before. And I do like that philosophy a lot. So second of all, going back to Torri making the team in Omaha, did you sleep that night?
So I guess I didn't really answer your question because you said, how do you feel? I will tell you, when she made the team that Monday night, it was the weirdest experience I've ever experienced. I couldn't walk. My legs were wobbly. I'm crying. I'm shaking. I'm smiling. I mean, people are hugging me and high-fiving me. And then not to mention where the coaches are. I have to walk down the stairs to get down to the pool deck where Torri was, and I could barely, hang onto the railing. I mean, it was the weirdest. I was like, what is wrong with me? But obviously it was just years of work and having it happen. It was like, that was like the biggest moment of my life in the world of coaching. So to have a girl that's as talented as she is, but then to not mess it up, it actually happened. It was just crazy. And but the funny story is, I had been around the pool deck, and Emma Wyant had made the team the night before, and her coach was talking. She's like, I feel hungover and I just went to bed, but the next day I felt the same way. I was like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? I have a headache. And, it's just, I guess, the emotions and the endorphins and the adrenaline, and it's like, but the funny story is, I'm standing down right where the swimmers come out after they swim their races the next night when Lydia Jacoby made the team, and her coach did the same exact thing. He was crying. He was bent over. He would, I was like, dude, it's going to be all right. I was like that last night.
Yeah.
So, I guess it's a thing. I don't know. Either that or we're getting old. I'm not sure, but, so yeah, that was kind of a funny thing to notice. Like, I didn't realize this was a thing that you go through that. Yeah, that was super exciting. And a cool part for me also, she won the race and broke the American record and got interviewed afterwards. And the whole Stanford team came down there. And like, when she was able to finally walk away, they all like mobbed her. And I thought that was really cool to see her have that support, because we're there by ourselves. It was me and her. And Reagan was the same way. Torri and Reagan hung out with the Stanford team most of the time down there. But to have that support, right, she's not even on the team yet, was amazing. And then finally I got to get to her, but it was exciting.
That is really cool. And it was really cool seeing Reagan and Torri get to have a team, because obviously none of their club teammates could be there. That I think that's the best part, because at the end of the day, trials is just a swim meet. And if you have some friends there to celebrate the highs and the lows with, then I'm sure it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah. So it's funny because one of the things that I was going to mention, again, maybe I'm jumping ahead, but Torri really struggled during the pandemic because every race she ever did was in a like silent pool, no fans, no parents, no nothing. And it was hard for her. Like we had to say, you need to get up for this. And she's like, I know, but I don't know, I don't know how. So we had a couple meets in the fall, very low key, like not a lot of kids, certain numbers that we were allowed to have. And it was just hard to swim. And, one of the reasons why, again, we went to that TAC meet was, well, if there's not going to be any fans, let's have someone that's going to really challenge you, and you better get up for that. Right. So it was almost like we had to go to that just to get her to feel that internal drive again, instead of just diving in and swimming. It was, a little bit more like on the line, I guess. So, and it's hard to recreate that. I don't have the capabilities of pumping in crowd noise or whatever, like at a football game. But so I think she struggled with that, and having fans in Omaha definitely helped her. She noticed it right off the bat. She's like, oh, this is awesome. This is what I was, hoping it would be like. And even that, it was kind of weird. It wasn't like full. I've been there where it's jam packed in there before, but 2,000 fans is way better than 0. So, yeah. So, I think that helped a lot also, that she's finally at a swim meet. It's obviously the biggest meet of her life, and there's actually people in the stands, and she totally went off with that. So, it was a good combination there.
So then moving forward on the flip side, what, obviously you weren't there, but from what she told you, from what you spoke to her about, what was the Olympics like with not having fans?
The one thing she said was the USA swim team did a great job of creating atmosphere. They were great cheerleaders in the stands, and we had 52 or whatever, plus the coaches, and right. She definitely could hear excitement in the stands. So I don't think it bothered her as much as just silence or whatever. So I mean, but the team definitely helped her, and I think you're on the best team in the world at that point, and you want to do the best you can, and your teammates are all screaming for you, and I think that was enough.
Yeah. So you were there for trials, you saw prelims, semis, finals of her 100 fly. Can you compare that to what you saw from on TV, prelims, semis, finals of her 100 fly in Tokyo?
So that's a funny story, actually. So in Omaha, yeah, I'm standing in the stands on that little coach's deck and watching, and I'm trying to figure out, do I watch the monitor more or do I watch her live? Because sometimes I can look up on the big screen and I can actually see a little bit better of where she is in the race. But when she got to the Olympics, I saw her prelim swim. I thought she looked good. She was fast. But then her semifinal race, I didn't see. I think that was because Chase Calise won gold medal right before that, and Jay Litherland got silver, and they were interviewing them, and you could hear in the background, beep, and then people kind of swim by, and I'm like, oh my God, that's Torri swimming. I'm kind of trying to see what's happening. I'm like, well, maybe they'll just play it afterwards. And then they literally showed like the last 1 second of her race. I'm like, well, I don't know what to do about that one. So I didn't see much of that race. But then obviously the finals, we went over to Torri's parents' house and watched that, me and my wife, and her strength coach, Torri Ortmeyer, was there, and some other friends and family. So it was a small gathering. And it was insane. I mean, it was an amazing race. She was out 25-4, but the one thing, and this is the coach in me, I knew we were in trouble at the 48-meter mark because she blew the turn. I mean, her turn was horrible, and she knows it, so I'm not surprising her by saying that. And we've talked about it. But she just really misjudged the wall and dove down and deep and far. And I was like, oh my, and she was still out 25-4. But I knew that she lost a lot of that momentum to help her get through the turn faster. But she crushed the underwaters coming off, and she came out in that first 25 coming home. I was like, oh my God, she's going. But I think the turn, that little extra effort, just helped her fade just enough at the end. And it was amazing because, I mean, 14/100ths of a second between first and fourth, and they all hit the wall at the same time. And then you just don't see her name pop up, and you're like, oh, So it was kind of heart-wrenching, but exciting, she swam an amazing race. She was lightning fast, ahead of the world record line for most of the race. But I just knew right at that turn, I was like, I didn't say anything, but in my head, I was like, and then it came back to get her. So, what I am telling everyone, and I'm putting it out there, is my hope is in 7 years from now, she'll be able to look back and say, that race helped define my next 7 years, because I never want to feel that again. And I really hope that she really perfects how to judge the walls, turns and finishes, and don't get sloppy on it. Think about it every day in practice. 1/100th of a second, 14/100ths of a second, whatever she wants to think about. Because I think that was the difference, obviously. It was that close. And when I talked to her about it, to be honest, she took about 24 hours to kind of get over it. And luckily she didn't have anything like the next day or anything. So she was actually kind of radio silent for the first 24 hours. But once, she had slept on it. And so that was another thing, like finals there was in the morning. And that's what I was worried about. I was like, you have a bad experience like that. And she was upset. Obviously you could see it on her face. They showed it on TV.
Yeah.
She has to go the rest of the day, like awake and thinking about it, where normally she would just go to bed and wake up, a new day, So I was like, oh my gosh, how's this going to go? Not to mention her family's not there. I'm not there. She doesn't know anybody there, or are there people there talking to her and helping her, get through that. And, not to mention she's a pretty strong kid. So, I knew she would get over it, but those are the things going through my head. But when I did talk to her, we talked about the race. We talked about the turn. She watched it with Greg on the video at some point, and she knows it. And she was just like, I can't wait for Worlds next year. So she's already setting her sights on next year. So I like that.
That is great to hear. Again, great insight. This is the inside knowledge that we don't see from the outside, but that's really fun to hear about and to listen to after the fact. It was a great race. A lot of the times in swimming, coaches are always saying you got to work your turns, your breakouts, like hundredths matter. But I think for swimmers, a lot of the times it's hard to really find examples of that sometimes, especially in a practice when you're doing, 10/100ths on 110. And it's like, I can't focus on every single turn or finish, it's things like that. But then you see those examples of it and you hear the coach analyze it. And it's like, it was the turn that made the difference in the finish, those 14/100ths from fourth to first. And so it's a great example of how all those little pieces cohese together and really make a full race.
Yeah.
And so I have to get your commentary now on the medley relay. She swims the 100 fly, she gets fourth and she takes a day, and then she's in a better headspace, I'm guessing. And then leading into that medley relay, the US is in a good lane. They're in a tight battle with Australia. What did you think of that swim?
In general, I thought that the relay was amazing. I think everyone swam well. You could look at the splits, you can analyze the splits, figure it out, but Reagan was a little off her time. Lydia was kind of right on her time. Torri was a little off her time. Abby swam great, and the hard part for Abby, and because Torri told me about this later, Abby gets out of the pool and she cries right away. Like she thought she blew the relay.
Yeah.
But it takes a team. So, it's all of those components, and they swam the best they could, I think sometimes we get too hard on these people. Like, how come they're not all swimming best times, minus 0.7 of a second because they have relay starts and blah, blah, blah. It's also the Olympics, and the last thing you want to do is false start on a relay. So, I don't know. I think they all swam great. And Torri, I'm going to back up a little bit. Like the difference between how Torri swam in the women's medley relay versus the mixed medley relay, which is a whole nother topic. I thought she looked great. She looked strong. And in the mixed medley relay, it was so hard because she was swimming against the guys and dealing with their wake and their wash, and then swimming into the wall while people are diving in. And, I felt bad for her, in that race. But I also keep telling everyone, I'm not really sure what other options they had, because I hear a lot of criticism about the order that they put on there. First of all, I'm psyched because Torri got to swim with Ryan and Lydia and Caleb. That's pretty cool,
It is.
But, all of the other options swam the 50 freestyle right before. Michael Andrew, he swam 50 free 5 minutes before that. Mm-hmm. So was he ready to pop out a great 100 breaststroke? Who knows, so I don't really know what else they could have done. So I was totally fine with the order. I know it didn't work out. It's hard to compete with Adam Peaty's 100 breaststroke. So, and then Torri, just tried to get through the race. So anyway, getting back to the women's medley relay, I just think they all swam great. And, again, 13 100s off of a gold medal would have been an Olympic record. They were actually under the Olympic record. So, you break the Olympic record, you're doing something pretty good. Just some other team did a little bit better. And that's what sports is, so, I don't know. I think we have, just kind of distorted realities that we're always supposed to win gold medals. And if you don't win a gold medal, you're not very good. But, I'm telling people Torri's 4th in the world in the 100 fly. That's pretty good. She has the American record in the 100 fly. That's pretty good. And it didn't matter that she didn't come home with a medal in that event. So, I don't know. I guess that's my take on how they did in the medley relay. I was happy for them. I'm glad she got a silver. I'm glad she got to come home with something. I think in hindsight, she's also excited and thankful that she had that opportunity to be on that relay and bring that home too. So, I'm proud of her, and I'm proud of all those girls because they swam their asses off and, did the best they could.
I'm glad you brought up the mixed medley relay. It's very sad because I forget about that because we didn't win a medal in it, right? And I'm glad you shared that perspective. I don't think a lot of people see it that way, as you mentioned, but it is an important thing to note that is the decision they made, and it was an informed one at the time. But I'm glad that Torri did get that opportunity, because it's not every day you get to swim with Ryan Murphy and Caleb Dressel. It's a pretty cool thing. But then, that medley relay, I think that was one of my favorite moments of the Olympics when you could tell that Abby was completely devastated, And then the other three girls just rallied around her and was like, hey,
all teenagers too.
yeah, exactly. It's like
Yeah.
these young kids are just like, we did great. You know, we're Team USA. We're amazing. We all did our best. And it's like, and we won a silver medal. And that's cool. You know, it's like that should be celebrated. It was pretty powerful. So so that's Torri. We've got about 5 minutes left. I want to talk about a little bit about you, Evan. You, like I mentioned at the top of the show, you've been on Arlington for 29 seasons now, head coach for 16. How have you developed? You've obviously developed an Olympian now. It sounds like you've developed a lot of top level talent. What have you learned over these, especially 16 seasons as a head coach? Because it sounds like you guys do some pretty interesting things at practice, and let's talk about it.
Man, I think my first answer is going to be that I want to always be in continuing to learn mode. You know, I don't ever want to think that I know it all. I know I don't know it all for sure. And not to mention, you know, in the age group world, they kind of come in and then they leave, and you know, then you got a whole new set of people. So you have to constantly adapt. So I don't know. I think one of the things that I want to say this is it's kind of our team philosophy that we don't do too much as younger swimmers. And I bring this up because Torri is a product from day one all the way through now, where she swam with AAC all the time. You know, she didn't move here later or swim on another team at any point. She's been AAC from day one to now. And so our team philosophy is we want kids to be kids. So we don't over swim them. And when they're younger, we want them to do soccer and piano lessons and tutoring and whatever else they do with their lives, you know, experience things. Not to mention better athletes are better swimmers. So play other sports. So from a young age, we've always wanted our younger kids to maybe swim once a week or twice a week or something like that. And then they'll get a little bit older and we'll add a day. And then like it's not until you're almost 11 and 12 years old where you're going 4 days a week. And maybe we'll have a 5th day option or something like that, but it's not every day of the week. And we're not doing doubles for no way. But then even the group that's right below me, my senior prep group, they practice 6 days a week, once a day, for an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours on a Saturday or something like that. So it's be kids and try other things when you're younger. And then once you get to a certain point, you can start whittling off some of those other sports and say, hey, I want to be a swimmer. Then you decide to do that. And, you know, then by the time they get to me, you know, my coaches have worked with these kids with stroke technique and all those other things, so that I want to give them credit for doing that to get them to me to be able to then push them as far as they can. Because even for me as a senior coach, my goal is to make it so that they are continuing to improve even when they get to college. And it gets harder now because the recruiting for college, you know, they want to be juniors in high school and they want to commit to a college, but I want them to still get faster as juniors and seniors and then freshmen and sophomore, juniors and seniors. You know, I don't want them to go really fast as a junior and then never go any faster than that. I'm not doing my job if that's what happens. But I know that happens a lot, especially for girls. Boys, it's also hard because boys grow at different rates, and when they grow, and they might not be bigger until they're 20 years old. But, you know, so the philosophy is develop them, give them opportunities at a younger age. And then I try to do whatever I can to continue that progress through graduation of high school and into college. So I have no idea how I've developed how I coach. I don't know how it came. I just kind of do what I do. But I'm a quiet coach. I'm not a screamer and a yeller. I try to teach them that you're going to get faster because you want to get faster, not because I want you to get faster, right? So I don't feel like there's any need to scream and yell at them. If I needed to scream and yell at them, they should probably just leave. But but I am known for having a look. I'm not sure what the look is, but they're all scared of it. They're like, oh my God, Evan gave me the look. But then they can just be like, I guess I didn't do that very well. And then, so if it works, it works, but I don't even know what it is. So that's the funny thing. But in terms of philosophy of how I train, I don't do cycles. I write a plan for a month or whatever, and just know that because I wrote the plan, I have the flexibility to change the plan. And if they need a day off, they'll get a day off, or a recovery day or something like that. Like, I don't like built-in recovery days. I just like, well, if they didn't need it, why would I give it to them? Because they're eventually going to need it. And I don't think we practice so many hours that like they're overworking. I think that I'm definitely not a yardage guy. Like, I don't write a practice having a yards goal in mind. I just have this idea in my head, and then I write it, and oh, it's 5,000 yards a day. Oh, it's 7,000 yards a day, whatever it is, so I don't know. So I guess my point is the ideas that I have in my head for practices are all based on the quality of work that they're going to be putting in, and it has nothing to do with how many yards they're going to do. So that's kind of the idea, but I also like to mix it up. I tell all of my kids that I'm trying to make you better swimmers. I'm not trying to make you better breaststrokers or butterflyers or whatever. I want you to be good at everything. So my practices replicate that. We do a day of freestyle, maybe, and then we'll do a day of their best stroke. I call it stroke number 1. And then we'll do a day of IM. And then we'll do a day of stroke number 2, maybe we'll do another IM day with stroke number 3, a little bit extra, so they can work on their weaker strokes. We'll do distance days, we'll do sprint days, so I totally mix it up, and just try to give them a little bit of everything. And, my advice to them is, by working on the things that they're not very good at, it's going to help them learn how to be better swimmers on the things that they are good at, because it makes you think a lot more. Right. So like the example I use is when you first learned how to write cursive, and I'm not even sure I can use that anymore because I don't know how many people write cursive anymore. But,
so
but
true.
You had to think about it. You had to like slow down, and you had to focus on how to make the letters work. But now you just kind of do it. So when you're working on your weaker strokes, you're thinking a lot more. And then you can say, oh, I see how that made me move through the water. Let me try that for this stroke. So I try to make everything complement everything, I guess, is the best way to say it. Because I know a lot of people come in and they want to just be a breaststroker or a backstroker or a sprinter or whatever. And I'm like, well, too bad. That's not going to happen here. You're still going to be good at those strokes. I'm going to make you fast at those strokes, but you're going to be better at the other things too.
Love it. That's Evan Stiles' philosophy in 7 minutes. We've got 60 seconds left. In 60 seconds, do you have a favorite set that you as a coach love to give?
The set that everyone would expect me to say is the Christmas tree set. And I know Torri, I think, probably has brought that up before. We do every Christmas Eve, we do a Christmas tree set. It's basically starting at a 25 fly, building up to a 400 IM by 25, and then going back down, taking away the freestyle, then the breaststroke, then the backstroke, and ending up with fly again. So it's a ton of fly. The intervals are not that hard. So it's not that, but it's a lot of fly, and they know what's coming every Christmas Eve, and they get it done. And, but they'll always say it's the hardest set. And one year because we had to change pools, we had to do it long course, and they will never forget that one. So, I don't know if I have a favorite set, because I don't repeat my sets very often. I try to come up with something new every day. Will they be similar? Sure, of course. There's only so many things you can do. But I think my favorite type of practice is just the sets that challenge them. And it's not just about the physical, it's about the mental. Because a few years ago, I realized, okay, we're doing strength with dry land or whatever, we're doing practices, but there's something missing. And I realized it was the mental side. So I started reading stories to them. Like for the first half an hour of practice, I'll read to them like a book about mental toughness or mental this or that. And we call it story time with Evan. And, I talked to them yesterday about, we're going to start doing that again now that we're kind of not as pandemic-y as we were last year. We couldn't do it last year. So they're all excited about story time with Evan. But I really do like the mental side of swimming. I think it's important to learn how to fight through the things, to get, just challenge yourself and be tough and race and do the things that you have to do to win, in practice, so that you can do that in a meet. So I don't know if there's a specific set, but there's definitely a specific type of set that's just challenging mentally and physically, that I can throw at them and let them have some fun with.
Well, Evan, I certainly appreciate you taking the time to sit down and chat with me today. It's been exceedingly insightful, and I'm going to have you back on to talk more about coaching and philosophy and training at Arlington Aquatic Club. But again, thank you today for taking the time.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
You've been listening to the SwimSwam podcast. Stay tuned for new episodes every week. You can take SwimSwam podcast on the go by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Look for links in the description below, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos as well.